Right, Comrade Bupage of the FLSP, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, comrades. Yeah, of course, Sri Lankan situation is concerned. Basically, how we analyze this recent government change in Sri Lanka is very important because not only Sri Lankan context, but certain foreign media and certain organizations and political parties actually uh, explain this as left government, and it's just like kind of thing that the left movement took over the power of the country. So we have to carefully analyze this situation. First of all, in 2022, aragalaya struggle is one of the historical movement in Sri Lanka. So the aragalaya basically emanated out of the economic crisis. The neoliberal economy was introduced to Sri Lanka in 1978, J.R. Jayawardena regime. Simultaneously worldwide, Margaret Thatcher's ruling was there. Ronald Reagan's was rule in the USA. So they only introduced these particular neoliberal policies. So that has come to Sri Lanka through the J.R. Jayawardena's regime in 1978. After introducing the neoliberal policies in Sri Lanka, up to 2009, there was a difficulty to fully implement neoliberal policies because of civil war. You all aware, comrades, that in the Tamil people, actually, there was a civil war that they demanded self-determination rights to North Peninsula. So, as a result of that, there was a protracted war for 3 decades. As a result of the war, all the capitalist regimes were in a difficulty to fully implement neoliberal policies. After 2009, the Mahinda Rajapaksa regime was able to expedite neoliberal regimes. In the guise of expediting neoliberal regimes, what they did was they borrowed a lot of loans from international bond market and through bilateral and multilateral organizations, countries. They borrowed a lot of loans. As a result of that, the debt crisis was escalated up to more than 60 billion US dollars in the year 2022. You all aware, after Rajapaksa regime, then there was a 2015 to 2019, there was a regime that Ranil Wickremesinghe was prime minister. Then thereafter, 2019, once again, nationalist movement took over the power of the country. Gotabaya Rajapaksa, Mahinda Rajapaksa's brother, became the president. Then in the year 2022, we had to pay around 7 billion US dollars as the loan installment, but Sri Lanka was unable to pay that. As a result of that, the country was declared as bankrupt. So that was the crisis. As a result of the lack of foreign reserves, government was unable to import fuel, medicine, and other essential items. As a result of that, there were big queues. Then, especially the middle class, they were unable to maintain their comfortable lifestyle, consumer lifestyle. Then they took the battle to fight against the government. As a result of that, there was a big struggle, which the result was in July 2022, the through people's uprising, the then president Gotabaya Rajapaksa was expelled from the president force. Then thereafter, what happened was through parliament conspiracy, Ranil Wickremesinghe became the president, and he was able to continue the regime for 2 years' time. But as I said, as a result of the aragalaya, the people's power was actually the people started to rethink about the people's power outside the established structures like parliament, because without an election only, people expel Gotabaya Rajapaksa, then president. So that concept was well established. Through people's power, we can win a lot of things, and we need not to rely upon the established structures. We can always exercise people's power, people's democracy by way of struggles. So that has been fully established. Then people also, after the aragalaya, actually, without any hesitation, we could say that new society was born in the country, with having with lot of radical ideas, and at the same time had that potential of fighting against the regimes. So that has been continued for 2 years, but that during the 2 years of Ranil Wickremesinghe, he brought lot of reforms in the guise of disaster capitalism. He used the disaster capitalism and using a lot of draconian laws, while bringing repressive act against the people. He wanted to bring a lot of reforms to Sri Lanka, especially the Economic Transformation Act kind of things. And at the same time, he entered into agreement with IMF. Then IMF package came to Sri Lanka. They gave 2 loan installments with initially with 10 conditions. All more or less all are detriment to the people. For instance, impose the taxation. So they increase 8% tax to 18%. At the same time, in the guise of um, debt restructuring, the first of all, what they did was they deprived the benefit of public funds like employees provident fund. As a result of that, the around 2.2 million workers, they lost their benefit from their funds. At the same time, electricity tariff increased for more than 400%, and the no salary increments. So all those things were rising out of IMF condition. Then people have been suffering a lot because of this IMF package. Then at the same time, the India and US intervention was so high during that period. So multi-billionaires of India directly came to Sri Lanka, and the especially the energy sector and other sectors, special harbors, 3 harbors now in the hand of India, 3 airports now given to India, and the fuel distribution is in the hand of India. At the same time, the fuel and the energy sector now controlling by the India. To facilitate that, they amended the Electricity Act and wrote various other laws to assist India. So now that Indian intervention together with US intervention was so high. So these are the burning issues during last 2 years. One is this IMF package. Second thing was the Indian and US intervention. Third thing is the continuation of neoliberal market-based economy. So as a left movement, we have to fight against these things, because through these reforms and interventions only, they continue the neoliberal policies in Sri Lanka and imperial interventions in Sri Lanka. So the main fundamental challenge in front of the left was as to how we challenge against IMF, as to how we face the Indian and US intervention, and as to how we defeat these neoliberal economic policies. So then only in 2004, in terms of the constitution, the president's period came to an end, and before September 2024, the presidential election should be called. Then Ranil Wickremesinghe called presidential election. When the presidential election was calling, the situation of the country was little bit complex, because on one side, the JVP, actually the it was in 1965 only. For the first time, Comrade Rohana Veera Singh, Rohana Vijayveera was the founding leader of the JVP. So it was totally a Marxist party, Leninist party. So that party was actually the start commenced their activities against the traditional parties who deviated from Marxist-Leninist policies, especially the Communist Party and Socialist Party of Sri Lanka. Then the Comrade Vijayveera led two uprisings, two armed struggles against capitalist parties. So that was the history. As a result of that, more than 100,000 youth sacrificed their life for the sake of revolution of Sri Lanka. So that was the history of the JVP. But unfortunately, after the year 2004, it has been deviating from left ideologies. Basically, it has gone to parliamentarianism. At the same time, bureaucratic leaders led the party, and various other attributes of JV is concerned, they completely deviated from left path, and it has slowly become pretty bourgeois and a party which having neoliberal policies. So in the year 2018, actually they form a new party called National People's Power. We call it NPP. So NPP basically they opened the entire party to the bourgeois and petty bourgeois classes, and they actually came inside the JVP and NPP, took over the control of the NPP. Then it has been totally converted to a neoliberal party. But only thing is, since the JVP is there, JVP leaders is there, that left face was always there, because the origin of the JVP was left-oriented Marxist-Leninist party. But technically, all the policies are neoliberal policies, and it has become a petty bourgeois party. So NPP during the aragalaya, they did not support directly to the aragalaya, but they said aragalaya is not the solution. We have to immediately go for election. So they threw out their consistent regarding the election. We can change rather than do it through elections, because during the aragalaya, power was with people, and immediately go for an intermediate government, and through that bring a new constitution with left ideologies, and through aragalaya change the system. That was our strategy. But JBP's strategy was somehow culminate the aragalaya and immediately go for election. So that was their strategy. So since they were consistent regarding that agenda, after Ranil Wickremesinghe came to power, they very easily they could go ahead with that agenda. So during that 2 years period of time, they spend billions of money, more than I think 15 billion rupees. So it's I think billions of money they spend. Actually, a lot of petty bourgeois and bourgeois class contributed to that. So using that money, they consistently maintain a good campaign. So they took over the control of social media, certain mass media, and it was a massive campaign. So as a result of that campaign, before the presidential election, they were able to come to the peak of the popularity. Then during the presidential election, actually the main other bourgeois party, that is Samagi Janabalawege, divided. Ranil Wickremesinghe separately contested. Actually, his vote base also coming from Samagi Janabalawege. And that main capitalist party's votes were divided, and there was a common candidate for North. As a result of that, Tamil votes also break into 2 or 3. So as a result of that, this NPP was able to get 42% votes for the presidential election. Then this Anura Dissanayake was able to win the election and become the president. Before the election, they actually just 3 weeks before the election, they actually launched their manifesto. There's nothing regarding socialism. It's pro-IMF, pro-India, and pro-neoliberal one. So it's nothing regarding the left thing. It's anti-corruption. They basically in order to attract the people, because a lot of people were so upset because of the corruption of the previous government, so they touched that part. So anti-corruption, pro-US, it was a manifesto. So as
Comrade Newman,
yes,
sorry to interrupt you, but I think you're having some connectivity problems. Every now and again, you're freezing. I
yeah,
wonder if it might be better if you switched off the video. Maybe you'd have a better continuity.
yeah,
No, thank
yeah. So how many minutes I have, comrade? More?
you. Well, you've had nearly 15 minutes, but can I just
Okay.
say, Comrade Swastika is obviously is having problems herself because she's been on and off, but she keeps on coming and going. So I assume that she's having even worse connectivity problems than you are. So I think you carry on for now, but I can let
Well,
you
well,
know if Swastika comes and is ready to speak. But please carry
okay,
on,
welcome.
comrade. Yeah, thank you.
So then, comrades, just a few 1 month before declaring the presidential election, uh, our party, Frontline Socialist Party, started a discussion with few left parties. At the same time, active members of the aragalaya, what should be done if election is declared. Then, after having these discussions, we decided to form a coalition with three left political parties, all are Marxist-Leninist parties, and at the same time, with certain active members of the aragalaya. So, together with them, we formed People Struggle Alliance just before the election, and we started our campaign. By that time, we were aware there's a possibility of NPP to win the election because of that wave. At the same time, we forecasted there is a tough fight between NPP and the Samagi Jana Balawege, other capitalist political party. However, the challenge which was in our hand was how we bring left politics, left agenda to the surface, because both parties and actually all the main candidates came up with neoliberal and capitalist policies and manifestos. So then we actually launched our manifesto. We named it as People's Manifesto. So it has two parts. One part is socialist, our final um plan, that is our socialist plan, and the second chapter is include what are the interim measures we are going to be taken until we convert the system to the socialism. These are the two parts in our manifesto. So as far as the interim measures are concerned, to bring a new constitution, to expand the fundamental rights, and as to how we give uh, solution for national question, and as to how we defeat monopolies and bring and how to protect the public education, public health, at the same time as to how we fight against the corruption. So these are things, some few of things that included to interim program. Our final program was socialism, completely convert the system to the socialism. So during the election, we did a good campaign, even though our policies were not popular. This left dialogue was not popular because both NPP and SJB and Ranil Wickremesinghe's party, They spent billions of money for their campaigns, and they were able to somehow popularize their manifestos, their neoliberal manifestos. So we were not strong enough to fight against that their propagandas, but we had a good ground campaign, and we were able to bring that debate to the surface as to how we fight against IMF, Indian US interventions, and neoliberal economy. So, as I said, then Dissanayake became the president. Then, soon after he became the president, he dissolved the parliament, and within 1 month period of time, he called the general election, the parliamentary election. So, during the parliamentary election, NPP was able to get more 1.2 million votes, because other main bourgeois parties, their voters were so disappointed because they lost the election. So the around 68% only casted their vote this time. That is also very important. There are out of registered voters, only 68% only voted. Out of which the vote base of the other bourgeois parties were going down, and NPP was able to secure 6.8 million votes, and they got the third majority of the parliament. So it was one of the biggest actually that was the biggest victory a single party could get in the history of the Sri Lanka. So now 2 days ago, actually, new parliament was convened, and they appointed their cabinet ministers. Now they started to implement their policies. The very first statement of the president, inaugural statement, he said his government has decided to go ahead with IMF plan, IMF program. So therefore, it is very clear it's not a system change. It's a continuation of Ranil Wickremesinghe's policies, bourgeois parties that Ranil Wickremesinghe's bourgeois party's agenda. Therefore, technically, nothing has been changed in the country. No policy change. No, actually, there's nothing regarding the left politics. It's just like a continuation of the previous neoliberal policies of the country. The challenge actually now, the comrades, you all are aware now, left movement is concerned. I think now in the history, this is the biggest challenge we have, because now certain groups, as I said, and certain countries, certain left political parties all over the world identify this system regime change as a that left party or socialist party took over the power. In Sri Lankan context also, the situation is same. Still people believing, since JVP is there, it's a left movement, the NPP is a left movement. So whatever failures of NPP would be counted as a failure of left. So that is the challenge we have. So therefore, when we carefully consider about the future of left movement, this is the most challenging era that we have, because on one side, somehow we have to demand this government to at least do certain reforms that will be actually benefited the people. So on one side, we have to have a struggle to do that as well. At the same time, as to how we establish the difference between the NPP and a left movement, because if we are unable to teach people regarding this difference, if the people identify this is a left regime, whatever failures should be in the bucket of left movement as well. So therefore,
I'm,
yes,
I'm not trying to cut you short, but just to let you know, Swastika seems to be back with a secure connection now. So
okay,
just if you could just draw to a close, and we'll hand over
yeah,
to
I'll conclude.
Swastika.
I'll conclude within 2 or 3 minutes. Okay, comrade.
Sure.
Dear comrades, so we have that challenge right now. So the debt restructuring is Swastika will explain that because she's being a uh, leader, the labor leader. She's well aware about those facts regarding the debt restructuring. So debt restructuring is concerned, IMF program is concerned, Indian and US intervention is concerned. So this government is totally now surrendered to IMF, India, US, and neoliberal economy. So then we have to continue with our fight. That fight is not easy like previously because, as I said earlier, even domestic political parties and also the other political parties in all over the world is still identifying this regime as a left regime. So we have a struggle to change that mindset as well. At the same time, locally, we we have to do a lot of things to change the mindset of people, which we are trying to do that. So basically, this is the history, and this is what happened in Sri Lanka. So worldwide, we know there are certain regime changes in in Mexico, Brazil. So certain progressive movements which having certain attributes of left to core the power. But in Sri Lanka is concerned, in Sri Lankan history, this is the most they got a massive power in the parliament, unlike other countries. But even France, in France, ultimately left movement took over the power. But during the election, they openly used the word socialism, and their all agendas, manifestos are based on socialism. Here, at least in their manifesto, there's no single word regarding socialism. So nothing, it's a totally neoliberal program. Therefore, we cannot compare this NPP with at least the other radical and progressive movements in France or Mexico, Brazil, because there's nothing regarding the socialism. Therefore, we should read this recent change, government change of Sri Lanka the proper way, and the Marxist-Leninist angle. We have to analyze that. Therefore, comrades, we therefore as FSP and PSA. So this is our reading regarding this recent political change of Sri Lanka. Thank you, comrade.
Okay, thank you very much, Comrade Nuwan. Swastika, are you with us?
Yes, I've gotten a secure
Very
connection.
good. Congratulations. Good. You please, if you're ready, if you could speak for 10-15 minutes.
Right. So I just wanted to pick up from where Nuwan Bopage left in terms of political situation in Sri Lanka. So as Bopage correctly said, there is a general perception across the world that in Sri Lanka left government has come. But during their election campaign, as well as now post-elections, what we can see is that their policies and the policies which they're implementing has nothing or very little to do with left policies and principles and so on. So as Bopage was saying, right throughout the election, their campaigning, what they tried to do was they tried to portray themselves as the center. So, and also did a lot, I would say, to ensure that no one mistakes them to be a left party. So even though, despite the fact that because of their JVP past, because of the past link with the JVP or even present link with the JVP, people had the impression that this is a left coalition which is coming to power. So there would be some kind of leftist values and principles in place. I think the NPP coalition did everything in their power to convince people that this is not a left coalition, this is a center government. We are not going to move right or left. We are trying to be very central, but we will do certain things like we would do debt restructuring differently to the previous government. We would take a strong stance on corruption. We would take a strong stance on, for instance, or we would renegotiate the IMF deal, and also we would relook at all the laws and all which has been passed. But soon after they come to power, I think the moment they came to power, within a few days, the United States ambassador comes and meets the new president. The Indian security advisor comes and meets the president. And there seems to be a lot of state meetings going on. And then suddenly the president announces that he is going ahead with the same debt restructuring arrangement which the previous government has entered into, which is extremely detrimental to the Sri Lankan people. To give a very summary of the debt restructuring arrangement which the previous government has entered into, essentially what they have said, essentially what the previous government, which is a neoliberal government, what they have done is they have said that we have to raise the taxes of the Sri Lankan people, and out of the raised revenue of the Sri Lankan people, we are going to repay the debt of course in dollars, but it's the strategy is to raise the revenue and then repay. So the entire burden of repaying a debt which was not borrowed on behalf of the or for the benefit of the Sri Lankan people has now solely fallen on the Sri Lankan working people to repay the debt. So that is the external debt. But when it comes to the internal debt, which is denominated in rupees, when it comes to internal debt, the Sri Lankan government, the previous government, went and captured the pension funds of the workers and they restructured the pension funds. So it is only the pension funds which has been the target of domestic debt restructuring. While when it comes to the external debt restructuring, it has been raising the taxes of people. That has been the IMF proposed strategy, and the government has accepted that strategy. So this government also is going ahead with the same, without any change, the government is just going ahead with the same debt restructuring package. When it comes to the IMF agreement, the IMF, there was a press briefing by the IMF head yesterday, or the IMF Sri Lanka head yesterday. They're very happy about what Sri Lanka has been doing, what Sri Lanka will continue to do. It looks as if under the current government, it's just going to go ahead with the same IMF package which existed under the previous government. So there is no change or no difference in terms of what the government will be implementing in terms of the IMF deal. Now, in the previous meetings also, I have explained in Sri Lanka, like in many other countries, when it comes to the IMF package, we are talking about financial deregulation. We are talking about making labor flexible, removing labor protections. We are talking about taxation on people, and particularly indirect taxation, which means taxation on essential services, essential food, and so on. We are talking about laws which are being passed at the behest of the IMF without any kind of consultation with the local people, all of us. It's just being passed because the IMF wants us to pass it, but not without any kind of consultation with us. So that has been the concern for us in terms of the IMF package. So this government is also continuing with that same package. And in terms of laws, the previous government passed certain laws which were detrimental to the people of Sri Lanka. For instance, the previous government proposed a new anti-terror law. When we look at the scheme of the anti-terror law, essentially what it means is they want to make civilian dissent acts of terror, and then bring those acts of civilian acts of dissent into a terrorism framework. They want to, for instance, produce, like when we look at the criminal procedure of anti-terror laws, they want to change rules of evidence so that people who get trapped inside these anti-terror laws, it would be almost impossible for them to come out of these anti-terror laws through a fair legal proceedings and so on. So that is one of anti-terror law which is a big concern for us. The other is they want to control online speech, online freedom of expression and so on. So they passed an Online Safety Act, which is essentially when we speak against the government and so on, now they would penalize us and they would make it criminal, therefore controlling freedom of speech. So this was also passed under the previous government. When this government was in the opposition, they opposed it, but now after they come to power, they're quite silent about it. When they were under the previous government, they were in the opposition, so they opposed the anti-terror legislation. Now, once they are in power, they have started using the Prevention of Terrorism Act. When they were under the previous government, they opposed various bills, including the Economic Transformation Act, which is essentially what it means is it's bringing IMF conditionalities and making it as laws of Sri Lanka. So this government actually opposed it when it was in the opposition, but now it's very silent about it. This government opposed making central bank independent of the Sri Lankan people. but now when it's come to power, it's very silent on it. So this is a concern, as Bopage was saying. Yes, it is. I mean, it is a welcome change, right? Now we look at the new parliament. It's all new faces. The old elite and the old corrupt elite has been kind of washed off. So that is a good thing. It's not a bad thing that this old elite are not in power any longer. But the problem is when such a sweep happens on the ground, when people have voted for a new change, and the people who have been put in to take forward that mandate of the people, the new change and anti-corruption, a new kind of system change. During the aragalaya, the people wanted a system change. So when people put these spaces into power, and when these spaces do not have the political will to take forward the mandate of the people, then we are very worried what will come next. So if the NPP government fails, there is a possibility that the country might swing to the left, or there is a possibility that the country might swing to the right. So both possibilities are there. So that is where we come in, and we are trying to organize people and convince people that we need to push the government towards a leftist direction if we want to come out of this crisis. But on the side of the NPP government, what they want to do is they want to play it safe. They're more interested in staying in power rather than looking at the mandate. Why have people voted for them? People have voted for them because they want better living, they want education and health and less taxes on them and so on. So that is what people have voted for them. But I don't think that the NPP government has the political will, or it has not shown the political will so far to take forward the mandate which people have given them. And it's a 2/3 mandate, right? It's literally they are in power without any opposition. So they can take forward this mandate, but I don't see the NPP government doing it. Roger, thank you.
Thank you, Comrade Swastika. Very clear. Both comrades have given us a very, very clear picture of the situation. And thank you for managing to overcome the connectivity problems. Right. It's open for questions and discussion. I see one hand up so far.
Comrade, I think Danusha is also here.
Oh, Danusha, yes. Comrade Danusha, would you like to add something? Comrade Danusha is a prominent left economist.
I think both Comrade Bopage and Swastika did a great job in giving us an overview. So I guess during the discussion, I'll chip in with some more information. That's okay.
Okay, well, we look forward to hearing from you later. Any comrades have any, first of all, any direct questions or points for discussion? We are running a little later than usual, so I would ask comrades if they could not to speak for too long. Okay, there's only one hand up at the moment. Comrade Ian.
Hi, thanks for both your talks, and thanks for your campaign in the elections. Very important to put those perspectives. I want to ask specifically about the national question, first of all, and probably mainly that the JVP, even when they were in their more left phase that the first comrade was talking about, were always had a reputation for Sinhala chauvinism. The second uprising that they launched in the 80s was kind of pitched in that way, even against the government making concessions to the Tamils. And then when they moved to the right, joined coalition governments and parliamentarism later on, that was they were on the side of Rajapaksa, if I understand correctly, when he was finishing off the Tamils in a very brutal military way before 2009, which, as the comrade said, opened the way to him having free rein to do his economic neoliberalism as well. So the traditional left idea of autonomy or federalism, which doesn't have to be a Leninist thing, though we are talking about now a government in theory in that tradition, but even across the straits in India and Pakistan, they're federations. A federation of a Tamil state and a Sinhala state, or an autonomous Tamil state in the north. seems to be a better idea than either the complete separatism of the Tiger militarists or the militaristic response of Rajapaksa, backed, I think, by the JVP. So the worry is now with the JVP so entrenched in power, if they do move left, if they do fall out with the imperialists, could there even be a use of the Tamil issue as a wedge against Sri Lanka? Or indeed, if they just stay as this kind of middle of the road government, they're not solving anything, obviously, either. I did see the new president, when he was still president-elect, talking about investigating the Easter Sunday bombings of a few years ago, that it looks like the Rajapaksas were involved in helping ISIS to create a anti-terrorism backlash that brought them back to power for a time. So I don't know how that's going, but certainly in terms of peace and justice, truth and reconciliation commissions, let alone proper constitutional reform after the horrors of 2009, it doesn't seem to be on the agenda at all. So I don't know if there's any way of putting that back on the agenda, or if it's something that so that's my main question, is about the national question and also the geopolitics of it, I suppose, where it will fit in with the Americans and so on.
Yeah, thank you, Ian. Steve.
Yeah, I was going to ask what the position of the unions are and those organizations that supported this government, now that the government has said they're going to go along with the IMF policies. What unions have indicated in opposition? Are there any plans to organize actions politically against the acceptance of the IMF policies? And what other left organizations are opposing these policies of the new government?
Thank you. Any more? If not, perhaps I could make a couple of points and ask a couple of questions. First of all, I'm very interested to know more about the evolution of the FLSP. So, if Comrade Nuwan could tell us a bit more, for instance, particularly what lessons they've learned from the degeneration of the JVP. It started as a guerrillaist organization. It started as, I suppose you could kind of Guevarist strategy. It was not based, I mean, no one correct me if I'm wrong, but it wasn't based on the working class. It wasn't based on traditions of class struggle. It was a youth uprising, and in particular, its particular flaw, if that's not too mild a word for it, is that it was a chauvinist organization. It was a sectarian organization, or communal, in that it was, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was based entirely on the grievances of the Sinhala youth and the mass unemployment and resentment against what they considered to be, and I think it was misplaced, the so-called favoritism shown to the Tamil population in terms of job allocations and so on. And that largely the JVP was a kind of mirror image, and perhaps an even more horrifying example of the atrocities committed by the LTTE. So first of all, I'd be interested to know what is your assessment of the previous history of the JVP. And the one next question is, you said something about, that we need to have, first of all, a program of reforms and then moving on to socialist objectives. Now, I think we've had a very, very good example of the limitations of dealing with and negotiating with the IMF. We had the whole experience in Greece, where there really not only a party like the JVP, but a new party came into existence, which had ostensibly very left credentials. That's Syriza, and they came to power in their case actually promising that they would resist the demands of the debtor of the EU, and that they would be able to move away from the terrible uh, uh, pressures and terrible defeats that they were under, economic disaster that they were suffering under the demands of the European banks. Now, one thing you can't do with when you meet a ferocious tiger is, there are various ways that you can deal with it. You can run like hell, or you can shoot it. So one thing you can't do is sort of stick your fingers up at it and stick your tongue out and make verbal criticisms of them when you don't have power. The only mass power that they had, or the only power they had, was the power of the masses, and not only the masses in Greece, but the masses throughout Europe. And the people of Greece were actually putting up slogans in their occupation of the public squares in all the languages of Europe, calling upon the people of Europe and the working class of Europe to rise up against the tyranny of the bankers. And surely, what again I'm suggesting, I'd like to know what Nuwan and Swastika think. Surely the strategy of the new government, if it was serious about trying to resist the pressures of the IMF, would be to link up with the working class of the world. But in particular, when you see that we've had the situation we discussed just last week, the uprising of the youth in Bangladesh. We've seen in India an electoral setback for Modi, and we've seen, never mind that, the magnificent farmers' struggle, which was an anti-capitalist struggle, and above that, again and again, token general strikes of an amazing 25 crore 250 million workers in token general strikes. And we can see there, in other words, that within the subcontinent, there is all kinds of turmoil and turbulence, which surely should be linked up with the struggle against the IMF and the corrupt and rotten ruling clique in Sri Lanka. So I would like to ask Nuwan when he comes back, and also Comrade Swastika and Darusha for their comments on that. Not necessarily right now. If there are any other questions or contributions, please indicate. Or if not, would one of our three Sri Lankan comrades like to comment?
Yeah, Roger, I think I will answer your question regarding FSP. I think Swastika might be able to answer the national question issue, and I think Dhanush also could contribute that other question regarding the working class. So actually, FSP, in the after two armed struggles in the year 1994. JVP came to the Democratic Path and they contested for the election and got one seat of the parliament. Then subsequently in the year 2001, for the first time, JVP went for a coalition with bourgeois government of Chandrika Bandaranaike. Then it has been extended in the year 2004. Actually, they directly joined with Mahinda Rajapaksa's government, another coalition government. Then habitually they started to form coalition with bourgeois parties. Then internally there was a debate has been commenced whether this party is correct or wrong. Then in the meantime, during the war period, they openly supported the war and they demanded government to use heavy weapons against the Tamil as well. Then it has become a racist party as well. Then in the year 2010 presidential election, that is the most crucial point that we started the internal debate. The incident was that they supported a military leader who led the war, Sarat Fonseca. He was the army commander during the last stage of the war. and he is responsible for most of the incidents taken place, most of the atrocities taken place in North. And JVP decided to support him during the presidential election. Then all the internal debates erupted after that. Then we openly brought these issues to the table, and in the central committee of the JVP, what we demand was this path is wrong. We are now deviating from left politics, and not only deviating from left politics, we are going to the other end. Now it's a racist party. At the same time, the bureaucratic nature is unbearable. Three or four people only controlling the party, no internal democracy. So therefore, we have to change that. So instead of changing that, what they did was they expelled our comrades from Central Committee. Then that is the starting point of forming new political party. So after making all the efforts to reform the party towards the socialism, towards the left, failing which we decided to form FSP. So by that time, we mainly concentrated as to how safeguard the left movement, because JVP name is very strong by that time, because after two struggles, after sacrificing around 100,000 lives, it has a strong image in the society as a party. So for that name, JVP name, so the what we wanted not to preserve a name or kind of thing, how to preserve the left movement. Therefore, it's one of the very hard decisions by that time. So we left the party and we formed the Frontline Socialist Party. And actually, we still believe we were able to protect and preserve the left movement of the country. So that is the starting point. That's the origin of FSP. Up to now, in the society, actually, FSP is the main party that propagating and organizing the masses for socialism, and a certain other left parties also there. So we form this People Struggle Alliance with the support of other political parties who believe in left politics, who believe in the socialism and Marxist-Leninist policies. So that is the briefly, that is the origin and the program of the FSP. IMF thing is concerned, Comrade Roger. Actually, we took a very firm policy decision. Our slogan was, even during the presidential election and general election, exit IMF, because we actually, the Greece experience we had, Argentina, Ecuador. So taking into consideration all these experiences we have, so what we demanded from Ranil Wickremesinghe government and from this government as well, we should exit from IMF. It is a totally imperial program, and nothing could be gained out of that. It's so detrimental to the oppressed of this country. And one thing I want to clarify: the JVP two uprisings, actually, the origin of the JVP, as you correctly pointed out, it was not a workers' party. Actually, we can, I think the correct way to name it as it's a oppressed party. We know now, even in the Communist Manifesto, initially it says workers should be united. Then subsequently it has been amended to workers and oppressed. So in Sri Lankan context, because of the caste issues, because of the unemployment rate, and because of marginalized segments of the society, in 1971 and even in the 1988-89 period, most of the comrades who joined JVP and led the armed struggle were middle class, oppressed people. Actually, later on, actually, JVP was able to form trade unions. But the origin and the two struggles are concerned that those are not workers' struggle. Actually, those are the struggles of the oppressed. So, Astika, I think regarding national question, you could answer.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
So with regards to the national question, as Bopage just said, during the war, particularly at the end of the war, the JVP took a decision to support the Rajapaksa government. to fight the war against the liberation Tamil tigers. And we all know how the war ended with mass killings and war crimes and so on. So we all know how the war ended. And since then, the JVP has not taken stock of their own complicity in the war against Tamil people in the north. So despite that, this time around, JVP has gotten the largest, or in terms of the numbers for a party which has not done any work in the north. They have gotten 3 seats in the northern province. I think 3 seats in the northern province, and in the east also they have clinched some seats. So they have representation this time, substantial representation, I would say, in the north and the east parts of Sri Lanka. In all districts, in all electoral districts, they have gotten representation in the north and the east, except one district, which is the Batticaloa district in the eastern province. So so despite their complicity in the war and war crimes and so on, this time people have voted for them. So then, because people have voted for them, the NPP, the JVP plus the NPP, the way they are reading the mandate is that people are now want to move on. They have forgotten about the war. They just want to move on. They don't want to talk about. So that is how the NPP is reading the mandate. But what we can see is the reason why people have voted for NPPs. They want to get rid of the whole anti-corruption wave. The old guard, the corrupt old guard, we need to get rid of them. They have not done anything for that. That wave kind of has taken over the northern province also. And in north, particularly the youth, the younger generation have voted for a change. I don't think they have really thought through what this change is, but they have voted for this change, which are like new faces, against corruption, to create a new government without the old faces. So that is the kind of ideology on which, essentially, it was an anti-corruption vote. But unfortunately, I think the NPP is reading it quite wrong. I think they're reading it as if the northern people have given the NPP mandate to carry forward what it has put in the manifesto, which is essentially nothing when it comes to the minorities. So I think they're reading it wrong, but I think people have given the NPP an anti-corruption vote, but that does not mean that people have just forgotten about the national question and they're fine with, even if NPP decides to remove devolution tomorrow, they would be fine with it. I don't think that is how we should read the mandate. And if NPP does decide to do that, it would be to their detriment. So far they have not. They have moved cautiously in terms of the northern province. They have the month of November is the month where people remember LTT cadres. So this time they have made an announcement saying that there would be no restrictions to remember LTT cadres. So they are taking few steps cautiously. But in terms of the national questions and whether NPP is going to do anything substantially, they have not indicated anything. The only thing they have indicated is that they would be resisting the UN resolution. And accountability must be a local process. It should not be an internationally driven process. It must be a local process. So which is great if we have accountability processes locally, which is great. But the irony is that when you talk about accountability and local processes, the NPP, the JVP, the main constituent party of the NPP, was also complicit in the war. So how is that party going to deliver justice is also a question which we have. But that is something which we have to wait and see. In terms of the Easter Sunday, the government is playing the Easter Sunday bombings around and saying, no, we want to do investigations, but nothing has come out so far. So once again, it's just 2 months. So we have to, I think, wait and see what the government will, if the government will deliver on its promises. Thank you. Dhanusha, maybe you can answer the question on trade unions and left in terms of how they are tackling, how we are looking into the IMF question.
Yeah.
Dhanusha, are you ready to speak now?
Yeah, sure, comrade. So I think with regard to the condition of the broader masses and their expectations and whether the NPP will be able to deliver, so I think we have to look into 2 aspects. One is, of course, the conditions, the economic conditions, and the distribution of the surplus is all determined by the type of imperialist global economic order which the country is obviously functioning. That on one hand, and also there is a very self-serving and extra consumerist compared to, let's say, countries like India or other countries, even in South Asia. Sri Lanka has a very consumerist, self-serving bourgeoisie. So the NPP has been captured by both these parties. On one hand, the global imperialist powers and their interests is completely being represented full on by the NPP, and also this very regressive underdeveloped bourgeoisie, which is in fact perpetuating conditions of underdevelopment. But as I think earlier, like both Comrade Swastika and Comrade Nuan said, people have been more focused on getting the old guard or chasing off the old guard. That is, has obviously added an extra dimension into exploitation, where they use the state machinery to for corruption and then enrich themselves. So people have been more focused on this issue. So I suppose NPP might, so it is like a very bourgeois democracy in an underdeveloped formation. So I guess the NPP would be able to deliver on that. As far as I see, I don't see a reason where they would actually, fall back on that and carry on like the old guard itself, looting the government resources. But the issue is far more complicated, where now, but I guess on that account, they might be able to hold on to the constituency or the public's favorable perception of them. But on the other hand, there are much more pressing demands, like for increased wages in the state sector and so on. So in order to deliver on these promises, they will obviously have to cause a redistribution in the resources, unless they are going to impose even more draconian taxation on rest of the country. So therefore, for instance, like we have unimaginable amount of tax concessions, which in fact reach almost is equal to the entire total wage bill, annual wage bill of the country, of the government. And mind you, this is a wage bill which is commonly considered to be overinflated because the state sector has been overstaffed. So tax concessions, in fact, almost equal this amount. So these issues will not be addressed by the NPP because they have hired their advisors and everybody from the institutions like the Chamber of Commerce, which is like the main body which represents the interests of the business elite, especially the corrupted business elite. So that will be an issue. On the other hand, they have been completely taken up by this IMF agreement, and also some of the proposals which the former unelected Ranil Wickremesinghe's regime proposed. For instance, this I know this might sound like a minor issue, but it would have a grave repercussions in the course of next 1 to 2 years. For instance, lifting the import ban on all the personal vehicles. Right now, like I said before, there is a very self-serving consumerist bourgeoisie in Sri Lanka. They're waiting to get into their new posh vehicles and drive around the country. That is what they most of the time dream. So now these people are lining up to buy, which will completely wipe out the reserves, which is something like 5 billion right now. And on top of that, since they are going to implement the ISB agreement and the bilateral debt agreements, there is again an added about 2 billion in debt repayments due next year. And when we have on top of that these crazy imports going through for luxury vehicles, and which will also inflate the fuel bill, and supposedly if, let's say, there is some external shock to the oil prices, right now it's going at around $70 per barrel. If it shoots beyond 80, reaching 90, let's say there is some intensification of the conflict situation in the Ukraine or the Middle East, which is a highly likely possibility. We will see a massive economic free fall, possibly towards the end of the next year or the following year. So things are not looking so great, despite there is so much of consolidation of political power in the hands of NPP. Its economic basis is in fact crumbling, while the NPP is sort of being completely unaware or being negligent or neglecting these realities. Yeah, thank you.
Right, thank you, Comrade Danusha. Dominic or John?
So it's Dominic, yeah. I just wanted to make to my mind maybe a few simple sort of points that socialists have got to keep bearing in mind. That we're in a class struggle, that the capitalist class, its function, as far as they see it, is to maximize their exploitation of the working class. And that is what they'll do. You compromise with them in a situation where the workers have some strength, and they'll just sit back, put up with the compromise for a time, but plan and organize to go further again in their exploitation of the working class. In Britain, we had a situation in the 60s and 70s, where the working class were organized, particularly in the major industries, engineering and so on, the heavy industries. They were struggling against the capitalists, demanding a greater share of the wealth the capitalists were exploiting from them. And in certain cases, they made gains. But the capitalists were planning with the government, and unfortunately also with the leaders of the labour movement nationally, the trade unions and the Labour Party, to defeat the workers' struggle. And we saw that through the miners' strike. And after the miners' strike, there was a massive exploitation of the working class. The workers looked where? For the unions to organise and defend them. They just stabbed the miners in the back. Now in Britain, you've got a situation where millions of children are going to bed at night with not enough to eat. That's one of the richest countries in Europe, in the world. It's about the 6th or 7th richest country in the world. There's no compromise with the capitalists. As far as I view it, the capitalists treat the working class as if they're slaves, and that's the way they view them. And when the workers compromise with them, there's no solution. The thing is, I think for socialists, we've got to explain to ourselves and explain to the working class the role of the capitalists, that there is no basis for compromise with them. In struggles, you might have to take a step back, but that's not a compromise. I think it was Lenin who said that if you're held up by bandits and you stop and give them some money, that's not a compromise, that's a necessity. But you don't join in with the bandits to exploit other people and steal from them. You carry on the struggle as it goes. And I think that's basically the way I see it. And that's the way you've got to approach politics. Not whether we compromise on this or we compromise on that. You don't go into any struggle on the basis that we're here to compromise. And particularly where you're talking of national movements and the demand for national change, which has been demonstrated by the workers and people in Sri Lanka. There is the need for national change in a serious way, and not to carry on under the same policies and program of the previous governments of exploitation. If you keep playing the same old tune, you'll still get the same old tune being played. You've got to change it, and that's what I'd say would be my contribution.
Yep, thank you, Dominic. Roy.
Congratulations to the comrades for the electoral campaign. Our respect to them for it. What I'd like to get is some stats on the electoral results. Do you have a first past the post situation in the various constituencies? What were the voting patterns? I've looked at the map and I have an idea where the seats were won for the ruling party now. But in terms of the percentage of the those people who registered to vote, the voting pattern of those, to get an idea of what is the significant majority, the parliamentary majority that the ruling party has in terms of the proportion of the population or the electoral population. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Luan, would you like to quickly just answer that question? Or any other comrades? I believe I'm right in saying that the FNSP was part of an alliance, I think Comrade explains, with, was it 3 other parties?
Comrade Roger,
yeah.
I'm extremely sorry. Could you please, actually, I couldn't hear the question properly.
Well, I think the question was, what were the results? How well did the FNSP or the alliance with which you were a part, how many votes did you get? What percentage? We'd understand that the overwhelming majority went to the NPP, and we understand the reasons for that. But could you explain more about your party or your coalition? How well you, and also were there any other left parties in competition?
Yeah, comrade. Actually, for the presidential election only, for the first time we contested as a coalition. So in that election, we got only 11,000 votes from entire country. So percentage-wise, it's 0.8 percentage. In the general election, which called almost 1 month after that, we were able to get 30,000 votes. Actually, our vote base has been enhanced and doubled in the general election. So the vote is concerned, actually still we have very less votes in the country, because for the first time only we entered into this electoral politics in this kind of organized manner, because previously we totally relied upon struggle-based politics, basically trade unions, student struggles, and the recent mass struggle. So for the first time only we faced election like this. So at the same time, because of this huge wave towards NPP, most of the left oriented thinking voters also decided to vote NPP, because basically they thought that rather than voting for FSP or People's Struggle Alliance, in order to defeat Rajapaksa and Wickramasinghe, best option is to vote for NPP. Therefore, they didn't consider about socialism or left-oriented politics. They just wanted to give a protest vote against the existing regimes. So basically, votes are concerned, we have very less votes. Other left political parties also, the situation is same. So there are a few other left political parties. Comrade Siritunga's party was there. They also contested. And New Left Front, they also contested, but they have lesser votes than us as well. So overall, the left movement is concerned. This election votes are concerned. Their vote base were actually not. The left movement was not able to secure considerable amount of votes during two elections.
Okay, thank you. Very concise, clear answer. Any other comrades? Any questions? Any points of discussion? If not, I think maybe we'd ask the comrades to just give their final summing up. Swastika, would you like to come in?
I would generally agree with what Comrade Dominic said about the fact that we should not go into a struggle thinking of where to compromise and how to compromise. It has to be a holistic picture we have to take on a struggle. And in terms of the NPP's victory in this time's elections, it was Comrade Roy also asked about the voter turnout. I think it was around 65%, which is lower than usual. Correct me if I'm wrong, Bopage and Danusha. It was lower than usual, so that also helped them in that high margin which they received. But nevertheless, they got a decisive, a vote from the people, despite the fact that the voter turnout was low in the parliamentary elections and so on. Despite that, they have gotten this 2/3. So it is a big mandate. But the issue is, so far they have not displayed the political will to take forward the mandate, and they are more interested to secure their position in power, in the status quo power, rather than challenging whatever which was wrong with that status quo which we are dealing. So that is the problem which we are going to face in the future. The challenge, of course, is that people have come in numbers and voted for this government. And so as a left movement and as trade unions and workers movement and so on, it's the last 1 month has been a challenge to even discuss politics with our own members in some instances. For instance, they have said, yes, we have voted for the change, so now we have to give time for the new government to function. But so what are the problems with the new government? Right now, I feel the population is not very receptive to even listening to what are the challenges we are going to face under the new government, particularly this government which has come with the left face. So that's going to be a big challenge for us, which we are dealing with right now. But as Comrade Dominic said, it's a whole picture. In a few months' time, things will start unraveling, and then we have to be ready for how we are going to take this forward, how we're going to take politics forward, and particularly how we're going to take workers' struggle, the struggles of working people forward. So I think in the next 3 months, that is what we would be getting ready for. I don't know whether we would, at this point, we can galvanize a mass struggle against the IMF, because this government also has done, what this government has done is done to legitimize what the IMF has been doing in this country, give it electoral credibility, so to speak. When you win an election and then you go into the same IMF package, it kind of gives electoral legitimacy to what the IMF is doing. So it'll take us some time, but we are using the next 3 months to actually organize and re-strategize as to how we are going to resist these various policies under this new government, which is going to be against the working people. So that's what I want to say in terms of the last few words. Thank you.
Thank you, comrades. Darusha, do you want to come back?
Thanks,
Yeah.
Comrade Roger. Yeah, I think just like Comrade Swastika said, this is like a period where people are basically sort of having a wait and see approach. It seems to me that the entire constituency has, for the moment, placed their trust with the existing regime of the NPP. But of course, we see cracks opening up, especially going into late next year and also the following year. So I think as a left movement, we need to prepare in a way that we don't also excessively antagonize the masses also, because we need to also read the pulse of the public at this moment and try to maneuver our way into it, so as that the movement can become a much more broader based. So we need to be conscious of all these nuances, and at the same time come up with the necessary criticisms and the ideological interventions, which will of course deliver not in the near future, but would take some time, because right now the political clout with the NPP is extremely strong. Yes, thank you.
Okay, and Comrade Nuwan.
Yeah, comrade. In fact, as we discussed earlier, this is a very challenging situation, because first time only we face this kind of situation. For 76 years of history, all the previous occasions, two bourgeois parties only ruled the country. Now this time, people actually decided to vote NPP, changing their mindset and deviating from their previous the practice, and they voted for NPP, which has not ruled the country, and it's a new situation. Our main concern is we have a self-criticism after the 2022 struggle. If we were able to capitalize that and build a strong movement just after the struggle, and build a new political party and take the advantage of the struggle, and to come up with a left-oriented agenda. But we were unable to do that. As a result of that, NPP was able to capitalize that. By capitalizing that, they had an opportunity to come up with a left-oriented policy, but they didn't do. Actually, they themselves decided to go ahead with popular thinking of the society, that is the neoliberal thinking. So as a result of that, we lost that opportunity to the change system using the people's uprising. But inevitably, if they continue with IMF, if they continue with same market-based economy, definitely now even under IMF after the year 2027, the country has to start to pay loan installments. So then definitely there won't be a stability of the economy. So this will pave the way for another people's uprising, or another stressful situation in the society. So we have to get ready for that. We have to strengthen the left movement. At the same time, the situation is a little bit difficult like previously, because if we are unable to build a proper left movement, we know what happened in other regions in the society, because after whatever failure of NPP might be paved the way for fascist and far right power in the country, because that's what happened in countries like Brazil. Because after the failures of left movement, then that vacuum will be filled by fascist and far right movements. So we have that challenge somehow to defeat both NPP agendas and far right fascist agendas. So it's not easy, but we have a strong team. trade unionists like Danusha, Swastika, at the time student movement of the country, and certain other progressive movements with us. So we are confident we could do that, and we need your assistance as well, both ideological way and at the same time through your activism. We always need your support to build the left movement in the country. Thank you, comrades.
Comrade Newman, thank you so much for your contribution. I think a very timely warning you gave at the end. If the working class fails to make a breakthrough, then terrible disasters lie ahead, terrible defeats are on the order of the day. But at the same time, what we can say is we've seen from 2022, from the aragalaya, what an enormous strength the population has when it pulls together, when it's united in its determination to overthrow the ruling elite. Who could have imagined before 2022 that it would be possible for the whole population of Sri Lanka, which had been divided by communal conflict, by guerrilla struggles, by defeat after defeat, and languishing under the iron heel of an absolutely brutal and horrific dictatorial clique? Who would have imagined that they could have succeeded so easily in just uniting together and sweeping the old regime out, so that the president had to flee for his life? Now that shows the potential power, but it does, the responsibility rests and the burden of the situation rests on you comrades like the comrades of the FNSP, Comrade Nuwan, Comrade Swastika, Comrade Danusha, and the other left forces and the working class, which has, of course, enormously strong and powerful and rich traditions in the past. The first political party in Sri Lanka was a Trotskyist party, believe it or not, in the 40s, at the time of the liberation from the colonial yoke. I'm not going to speak about, I'm not going to take time, but it has traditions. The Hartal of 1953, the election of a left government in 1970, and of course we had all the horrors since that time, but the potential and the traditions have not been stamped out, and therefore you comrades have got an enormous role to play. And also, as I say, it's necessary to link up with the struggles in India, in Bangladesh, in Pakistan, which we discussed also last week. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to speak so long. I just wanted to really tell the comrades you have our solidarity, and any way that we can help, please let us know. And you're always invited to participate in our meetings in the future. The same goes, I see that there's a number of comrades who are not, we haven't seen very often in the past at our meetings. Please, if you're not on our mailing list, please let us know. We'll put you on. We have meetings every week with comrades from around the world, and we think we're keeping our finger on the pulse of the class struggle that is continuing around the world through periods of advance and of periods retreat alike. Next week we have a discussion on what kind of period we're going through, because we've had a number of setbacks. We've had, of course, the victory of Trump in USA. We've got far right parties in government in many countries of Europe and around the world too. Is this a period of defeat, or what are the prospects? That we're having an open forum discussion next week on these questions. We really welcome everybody, and we welcome your contributions and the insight that you can give from your own work and from your own countries into this discussion. Thank you very much, comrade. If there's any other announcements, now's the time. If not, I thank the comrades for their attendance, and we'll see you next week.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
comrades. See you.